Good day, viewers. You're welcome to Abia State online television. Today, we'll be talking to the Honorable Commissioner for Finance, Mr. OBINNA ORIAKU. Mr. OBINNA ORIAKU will be our guest in the next 30 minutes on Abia State hotspots. Mr. OBINNA ORIAKU, you're welcome, sir.
Thank you, and nice to have you here.
Mr. ORIAKU, you've been the Commissioner for Finance, Abia State, for 3 years, and now 2 and something years now running. And within this period of time, there have been salary issues. Can you please enlighten the public on why there are those salary problems within this period of time?
Well, thank you for the opportunity of having me in your studio. Like you rightly pointed out, I've been around since the inception of this administration, first as an economic advisor. I think I was appointed on 3rd of May, just barely 4 days after the swearing in of the governor, as an economic advisor, which I did for about 6-7 months before the ESCO was fully formed, and I moved over to finance minister and of course economic planning. Salary issue is a major problem in the state, and then we've taken time to understudy where we are located today. Why is it that among other states around here we are the only ones having these challenges? As a person and as an administration, we have taken time to understudy what are those problems, because if you don't really identify them, the tendency for most people to think that that this problem is coming from the principal actors in this administration. Apparently they are siphoning funds out of the state, or they are misplacing their priorities, or they are using it to on jamboree. A whole lot of interpretation will be given to why we have issues with salaries. One of those things we did was to understudy why we are currently having issues. One, I need to list them out. We, as a state, we had our fundamentals wrong at the beginning as it affects employment. Are you employing for the purposes of filling vacancies? Did you relate it to these skills required? Or are you just taking employment as a welfare scheme where everybody from your location comes in, everybody from this zone comes in, irrespective of needs and even the implication on the wage bill for the state? We discovered that we have an over-bloated workforce. That is why if you go to ministries now, you see them loiter around. Some even don't have seats. Even where they have seats, there's no defined rules. Naturally, these things shouldn't have happened. And in other places where salaries are not being owed, they have trimmed workforce. We've taken time to look at the total number of workers in Abia State and comparatively with other states. Even much older states like Enugu State that has been there before now, their workforce is less compared to what we have. The other problem we have is the wage bill itself. The wage bill, what constitutes the wage or the salary of a typical civil servant. We also got it wrong there. It's on record that Abia pays the highest. This has never been faulted even by NLC. In the whole southeast, no state comes close to Abia as it affects the take-home pay of an average civil servant. I'll give you analysis. There's a particular cadre in this state that currently, before we came in, they were earning 623,000. I don't want to mention them because the last time I tried to be specific, there was this agitation among the workers. It's as if one is going on air to advertise what they earn, which ethically is not too good. So I want to leave it at that. Now, this same 623,000, when we came in with, we felt it was damn too high for a civil servant at that level. Comparatively, we also tried to find out other states, what are they doing? We removed about 75,000 from that 623,000. What it means now is that they're in about 500. Now, if you if you that it end about 500 and something gross. If you net it, less deduction, these guys are still costing home close to 500,000. And their counterpart in Enugu earns 290,000. The implication is that what we use in paying a civil servant in Abia is what other states are using to do 2 months. No wonder they are not having this problem.
But then some financial analysts and specifically an accountant of repute, Mr. Chida Jebu, was in our studio a few days ago, and he analyzed why we're having these salary issues. Coming from the financial background, as a core accountant that had gone to the Apex, he said it's as a result of budgeting discipline. How would you react to that?
Oh, no, you know, I don't want to join issues with my uncle, whom I have so much regards for. He's the doyen of accountancy, and then we have so much regards for him. But the truth about it is that until you come in, even from the outside, you will not appreciate the depth of the problem we have in the state. It's easy to criticize from outside, especially when you are from the private sector background. I had that notion while I was still there. But now that I'm in, I'm seeing why these problems are coming up.
Because why he said that was that
it has nothing. It has
nothing. Have been able to sustain those wage bills, and then like your administration have come in with this biometrics, pruning down the workforce and weeding out those who are not ab initio qualified to earn salaries. Those we call ghost workers, isn't it?
Yes.
But then the problems still persist.
Yes, it still persists. Now let me take you on again. When we came in, ministries, department and agencies, the state was using about 1 point average. You know, salaries are not static. They were using an average of 1.5 billion to pay MDS. Today we are using about 900 million, 8 to 900 million to pay MDS. Now, without prejudice to those that have retired within these 2.5 years we have been in the saddle, that was the area we made serious milestones. We achieved a lot there when we introduced the biometric capturing system, when we stopped the payment of salaries ministry by ministry and now have a centralized payroll system. Before we came in here, somebody, Minister of Transport, was paid over $1 million as salary in a month. That these were collaborations among ministries and agencies that were responsible. I'm not here to talk about that. I want to tell you what we have done. First, I was trying to tell you why we are having these salary issues. I told you that Abia pays the highest in the whole Southeast. I gave you an example of a particular cadre that what we are currently using to pay 1 month's salary is what our neighboring states are using to pay 2 months. I take you again on a salary level for somebody who is in level 16, maybe principal 1 or 2 for those of them heading secondary schools. Whereas in Enugu, the take-home pay of a principal is 106,000. In Abia is 190,000.
How was the former administration able to survive?
They were able to survive, one, because as at the period, then what we were getting from federal allocation hovers around 6 billion to 6.5 billion, at times 7 billion. This is aside any month the excess crude was shared. I'm just coming from the airport, I'm just coming from the FAC. The last FAC we got was 3.4 billion. If you are receiving 6.5 and now you are receiving 3.4, from day one you know that this problem is going to come up. So fundamentally that's where it's coming from. Now that has made, if you are not careful, you think that we have not made serious efforts, or we have not achieved a lot in pruning down the wage bill and the salaries of civil servants. You were using 6.5 to handle a situation you are still currently handling with 3.2. So I think kudos should be given to us in that regard, because we have not, if we had not done these things we did, the efforts we made, honestly, Kogi would have been better than us. We pay the highest, we have overbloated workforce, and then comparatively, what did other states do? When Dave Umahi came in, if you remember very well, if you get your history right, the salaries of Boeing workers were also slashed. Of course, I've told you what Enugu earns. I've told you what Anambra used to pay 290 to their PAM sec, 250 it was this current governor that increased it a bit. So I don't know what our own is doing around other figures. But most importantly is that these issues are being addressed. And remember, it's a labor-related matter. It's not something maybe from the private sector. You just give an executive fiat slash salaries. You just, as a civil servant, as a worker in a private firm, you just receive an ordinary memo through your email address that look, due to prevailing economic situation that we are going to reduce our wages to align our operations with the current reality. But unlike, you can't do that in public service. You need the labor, you need to carry them around. That is what we are doing. We're sensitizing Abians that look, this current thing we are doing now is not sustainable. We've taken time to copy other states. We tried to find out. Now, what brought about this was this wrong notion about oil producing. Yes. The then operators were looking at Abia as a huge beneficiary of the 13% derivation, not knowing that we just have very few oil wells. I keep telling people that was what deceived us. That was why those people who were agitating for increased wage bill, we are comparing us with Akwa Ibom and River State.
But then,
and the emo that
also give us a plus as against states like Ebonyi, Enugu.
It doesn't.
Who are still up to date on their salaries.
It doesn't. Now that is what has brought us to where we are. That is what has brought us to where we are, where we have outstanding salaries. And don't forget, it also has ripple effect. Because if you are retiring at 350,000 a month, your pension will be calibrated based on that. And that is also why our pension moved from 280 million to 450 million. Whereas the state pension for a boy is 150 million. So why can't we pay, I mean, if I'm in a boy, why can't we pay 150 monthly compared to 450?
That's another contentious issue that is very confusing to the public. The government has always insisted that they are up to date with core ministries.
Yes.
But the majority of the workers out there still complain that they are being owed 4 months, 7 months, 3 months. Can you please define who are the core ministries and why those other ones are being owed that much?
Now, you know, there's this misconception. You are right. I also took time to explain that during the last synod when I had the opportunity of talking. As of today, I'm just coming back from FAC. We are not owing anybody who tells you he works with Minister of Works, Minister of Agric, Minister Government House, SSG office, all the core ministries. These are the people called MDAs. And this constitutes about 65 to 70% of the entire workforce of the state. So, if out of 100% you have handled, call it 65 if you want to be conservative. You can be, and then now that is what makes us feel a bit worried, because if you have handled about 70% of a problem, and that 30 that is outstanding, the impact is being felt as if that the opposite, that you have not paid over 70% of the entire workforce. Yes, but this is the work of the opposition.
Why is like that? No, hold on, Honorable. Let's take it in factual terms. Now, a ministry like Abia Line, an agency like Abia Line, has been owing for over a year now, if not more. An agency like what's it called? ASEPA and all that. You know.
No, ASEPA is not being owed. ASEPA is structured. Now, Abia Line is not structured. They are not civil servants. Okay. I mean, we keep making this reference anytime we want to run down government. Abia Line is not structured. ASPIMS is not structured.
Okay.
This is just an agency. Which
how many of them do you have in that? What of ASUBEB?
ASUBEB is structured. It's
owed about 4 months.
No, it's about 3 months that ASUBEB is being owed. These are among the people. The ASUBEB is a parastatal. ASPIMS, Abia Line, they are not structured. They are not. If a worker there retires, he or she is not entitled to pension. Is not entitled to any government benefit.
So how do they get their salary?
Now their salaries comes from their operations. Now, Abia Line, of course, I'm sure you would have used their services. You would have used their bus from here to where. Now, they have people who also buy into the franchise. You buy a bus, you register with that. You pay token for those services. Those income they make, It is from there they run the operations.
How are they regulated?
No, they are regulated within the confines of the act that establishes Abia line. So
there's no regulatory agency that oversees the operations.
The Ministry of Transport.
Does it mean that a general man can come now?
No.
He's working for 10 years.
Ministry of Transport have oversight function on what they do. Now we also know the story when the rain started beating us in Abia line, there was mass employment. That agency was seen as a welfareist agency. All the workers there wanted to get their brothers, their sisters into that same agency. Now, they didn't take cognizance of the business they're into, that they're into transportation business. I think as at the time one government policy changed or people brought in bigger buses on the routes they were already used to, that crashed the cost of going from here to Aba, and it affected the operations. Of course, the overhead is still high. That is why they have those backlogs. But kudos to the new management. The new guy there is doing so well. He has been able to reduce the number of outstanding months and has also been able to sustain this particular job with the old fleet, old buses under their fleet. Remember, the lifespan of some of these buses is just between 2-3 years. But for a bus that is as old as 5 years, 6 years, the GM there is still trying to eke out something from the operations, to the extent that he has also been able to use it to reduce their outstanding debt from Bank of Infrastructure and other areas. So anytime any analysis about debt or outstanding salaries are being made, and you hear about Abia Transport, it is not the core responsibility of Abia State government. If you also hear about our SPIMS, even though our SPIMS is not being owed, it is not the core responsibility of Abia State. So anytime anybody under Abia Facts comes up with such narrative, please call the person's attention. Because this has been a recurring name anytime somebody wants
So can you please use the opportunity to put us into all the agencies that fall into this category?
I've mentioned
Abia Land.
The other one is the Abia, the people responsible for land. Abia Land Development Agency. I mean, yes, there was a time they were having issues with the level of
former PIU.
Beautiful, the former PIU.
Yes.
They're also not structured.
Okay.
Their job, their day-to-day operations is what they use to finance themselves and pay their salaries. So if you say, for example, their job entails identifying a land, go about the acquisition legitimately, now engage investors or sell directly to the government from the proceeds. They develop the areas. I mean, they have a lot they do. In other areas, it's working well. In Enugu, where I come from, Enugu Housing Development Corporation is not structured. Civil servants long to go into that area because their salaries are higher. I mean, they pay higher wage bill compared to civil servants, and it's run like a private sector outfit. Well structured, I mean well run. So the same thing here failed. So it's not an aberration that there's an agency with the name Abia State that is not under the payroll of the state. It's normal government practice. It now depends on the operators. How have they been able to run? So back to salaries. MDAs were up to date. We even started leave to pay the leave of last year in MDAs. Where we have challenges include primary school, secondary school, pension, and some parastatals. These parastatals, we don't pay salaries to parastatals. We pay subvention. They are subvented because they generate their own income. Abia ABSU, also Health Management Board, HMB. Kudos to the new management there, the lady there. Is on record that through the internally generated revenue of that agency, she was able to turn around Abia General Hospital. But the person who was there told us that they were not making one kobo from all the functional general hospitals then. It's about leadership. It's about what you want and what you have upstairs. So that lady has been able to turn around that area. And we are supporting her by making sure that their subvention is regular. So if those that have done well, we celebrate them. So she's one of our poster executive chairmen of any of these agencies.
That's impressive. Coming to teachers, you just mentioned teachers now. A secondary school teacher told me, was secondary or primary school, told me that she was paid last by November.
No.
Then, I think the primary schools are being paid by local governments. That's what I learned, isn't it?
Yes.
Then, I think that's secondary school. They said that she was paid last by November.
No.
And I'm aware that the local government, there's a particular local government that told me that they've been owed about 7 months now. And even that was why they resisted the last biometrics that came to them. The workers resisted the biometrics. They said what the biometrics people are coming to do is that after doing that, they will now demand for about 3 million. And the wages will still not be paid. How successful has the state been in this biometrics thing? And why are there still this issue of doing that biometrics over and over again? Is it something that can be done one-off?
It's not a one-off thing. First is that because you raised some issues here which needs to be addressed. Primary school teachers are being owed only 2 months.
2 months.
I'm on air here.
Yes.
I can't tell lies about it. Secondary school teachers, because we have commenced, I think January, they are being owed 4 months. We are still in the 5th month of the year. We've not entered the 6th month. Now, why are we having these challenges? In the secondary school management, we've been able to prune down their wage bill. It used to be 550 million. Today it's 440. That is the success we have recorded, without prejudice to those that have retired. The same in primary school. Primary school, within this same period, we've been able to implement their promotion areas from 2009 to 2013, hitting 14. If we had not done that, primary school wage bill would have moved down from 750 to about 400 million. But because we want to compensate these people who are they're in charge of the basics, they're in charge of the foundation of our pupils that are doing well. Remember that we have done well consecutively in WAEC, and the foundation starts from the primary school. That is why, even with its implication, the question naturally you should ask is, why didn't you bother about this implementation all this while? You waited for us to start implementing 2009 to 2013. But we did that. That is what we have done in the primary school. Now, there's also what they call TSS, Teachers Enhancement Scheme or something, for those of them that are in the classroom. Not everybody under primary school. Beautiful. Not everybody under primary school system is in the classroom. There are also some non-tutorial. So for those of them in the class, these are a scheme that is meant to appreciate them. It hasn't been implemented in the last 6 years. We've been able to do that. In short, the last time it was implemented was 50 million. Now it went up to 90 million. And for 3 months consecutively, we've been able to do that. That was why we are taken aback with the strike they embarked on. I'm not saying that 2 months as standing is not enough for you to go on strike, but if you have 5 conditions you gave to a state and they've been able to do 3, we should expect you to give show little understanding in what they're doing. So that strike was very embarrassing. It's highly regretted, and then as a government we have also engaged them more to make sure that such opportunities don't come again. But we have a clear-cut strategy on what to do as regards cleaning up their standings. We held meeting last week with the governor. We tried to come up with strategies. We discovered that even though oil has gone to $80 per barrel, unfortunately, it has not reflected in our take-home, except for this month on, that of course you have had the figures hitting almost 700. This is the highest we've ever gotten since we started going for FAC under this administration. Now, and of course, the why is like this because of the intervention of the governors. If you also remember, about 1 week or 2 weeks ago, governors met the president and talked about an NPC and issues about an NPC. So that's why we're having these figures. We pray it's sustainable. If it's sustained, I'm sure that all disaster. But if we go back to 500 and something billion, it now goes back to 2.2 billion for local government, 3.4 billion for state. Is a major problem. Because
coming back to teachers, I've always discovered, like when they always complain that their salaries come in disparities. Some will receive June, some will receive July, some will not receive May and all that. I don't. Why is that problem there?
No.
They don't receive it. They don't see their salary.
No. Now look at you. Asked me the strategies about covering these gaps. Now because we've discovered that we've waited for oil was doing 43, now 60, 70. One should expect that from maybe 2.2 billion, you should hit 2.8. But when we discovered it's not happening, we said, okay, well, let's come up with this strategy. The local government of primary school teachers, their wage bill is 750 million. Now, under the primary school, we have zones: Abba zone, Umuahia zone, Ohafia zone, and headquarters. After payment of salaries for this month, if we maybe have 300 million, you know, in government dealings, most times you can't just keep money. It's a bit difficult. It requires a lot of financial discipline to have such an amount waiting for next month's allocation. So, in a bid to cover this gap, we held meeting with them. Look, at the time this outstanding was 4 months. Today it is 3 months. There was a time it was 5 months. Today it's 2 months. And that was the strategy we adopted. Instead of keeping that 300 in the cooler and maybe something will come up, because government doesn't, I mean, it can't run government without money. And that money will be used for that purpose. Let's use this 300 out of normal 750. Get at either, start with Ohafia zone, find out how many to cover in Umuahia zone, and make known that we have covered half of that month. Next allocation, when we come back, we finish their standing month and start up again. So, and that was the strategy we used, and it has worked. So what we try to do is to make sure that we alternate the people that will not be getting, so that it's not every month Abba zone is not getting that particular. So
that explains that.
That is what we are trying to do to make sure that we cover the gaps.
Mr. OBINNA ORIAKU, thank you for being our guest in the studio today. There's a lot to discuss with you, and I'm sure that one session of this program will not be enough to discuss what concerns finance and the salaries in this state. I hope when we call upon you anytime, you will still answer us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I remain your anchor, Uche Agoro.